Hey guys, what's up? I just wanted to share a little something that I was reading this morning out of Isaiah 53 and Psalm and Matthew. It was kind of all over the place. And it does pertain to Easter. You know, it's that time of the year, and I know that we're probably hearing all types of services and messages, and it's kind of feels like it's the same thing that we've heard all of our lives, but something that God has really been placing in my heart recently is just the parallel between us and Jesus. And that's kind of weird to think about. That's kind of something that we never really talk about or think to address, because it's just something so far out there, because it's like us and Jesus, like Jesus through the roof, and then us, like there's no comparison. But as I've been reading out of Psalm and just reading how David is just, how God has just used David's heart to express and glorify his beauty through that. And as I was reading, prophecies and just about Jesus's life in general, it just hit me like there's this extreme parallel between the resurrection and the crucifixion. And I just said that in the backwards order, but between that and then between our lives and our pain and our struggles and how God uses that. So I kind of just want to talk about how human Jesus was and how much he loves us, and just kind of lead that to what it looks like in our lives. So starting in Isaiah 53, and you'll probably hear the scripture quite a bit this weekend, and you probably have heard it leading up to this weekend. But anyway, so it talks about how Jesus, it talks about the fulfillment of the crucifixion and this actually happening and what it will look like and what Jesus' life will look like. And it starts, like I said, in Isaiah 53, and it says that there was nothing beautiful or majestic about his appearance. Nothing attracts us to him. He was despised. He was rejected. We turned our backs on him. We looked the other way. Again, he was despised, and we did not care. So here we have Jesus, who was absolutely hated in this moment. Nobody was standing up for him. Nobody was saving him. And instead, he was being hated on. He was being despised by the same people he was saving. Anyway, so we see that Jesus was hated. We see this humanness in Jesus. We see that he experienced the same rejection, the same abandonment, the same pain, and the same hurt that we experience. And a lot of people, and myself included, I had a really hard time understanding how Jesus could understand what it felt like to feel our pain, and what it meant for Jesus to feel abandoned, and what it meant for him to feel loneliness, anxiety, and fear, and hurt, and just overall just pain. Like, how could the Messiah know what pain feels like? But if you think about it, his experience is the definition of pain. It's the epitome of pain. It's the root of all pain. And our God sent his son to experience that to save us. And so as we read this, we see that Jesus was like any other human. He went through temptations. He went through pain. He went through friends stabbing him in the back. He went through people taking advantage of him, people taking all of this love and this wonderful awesomeness that he is. He experienced people taking that from him and not giving anything back to him. Jesus experienced the same pain that we experience, giving your heart away to so many different people to only get this in return. Jesus experienced that pain. He knows what it's like to be despised, to be rejected, to be hated, to be just to be like the forefront of everyone's hate. He knows what it's like to be lashed out on. Sorry, I'll keep going on. I just keep repeating myself, but Jesus knew pain. Jesus knows pain. Jesus experienced that pain. And it says, if you read on, it says that it was our weakness he carried. It was our sorrows that weighed him down. It was our punishment. He was pierced for our rebellion, crushed for our sins. He was whipped so we could be healed, beaten so we could be whole. And it says that he was oppressed and treated harshly, yet he never said a word. And when I read this, I was like, surely he said something. Like, I read in the gospel where he had to have said something. Like, he had some sort of reply to this. And all I could think of was the one line where he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? And I was like, wait a minute. Like, Jesus said this. He obviously was doubting God and God's plan. So I flipped over to Matthew. And this is where we kind of get scattered. So just stick with me here. So I flip over to Matthew. Let me mark my page. Matthew 27, verse 45 through 46. It says, "At noon, darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock. So here we see Jesus is hanging on the cross. He's been beaten. He's been torn up. His clothes have been gambled for. He has just been completely harassed, embarrassed, taken advantage of. He is in the middle of this hardship, of this trial, of this indescribable feeling of abandonment and hate and just pain. And it says, at about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why have you forsaken me? Why have you taken everything I've ever known? You've ripped my normal away. You've taken all of this goodness out of my life, and you have repaid me like this? I have done all of this for you, or I haven't done anything to harm you. I haven't done anything to take down your kingdom. If anything, I've done everything for you. Why have you abandoned me? Why have you left me alone in the middle of this darkness, God? Why have you given me this pain and this hurt and this rejection and this feeling of loneliness and abandonment and just pure despise for my own self? Why have you left me with that after all I've done for you, or after all I haven't done to harm you? Why have you been this glorious God to everybody else, but to me, you abandoned me? Your own son, the one you have a plan for, your own son. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever been laying in bed and you just think, what the heck, God? Like, I'm here for you. I'm listening for you. I want you. I want to know what this even means to be in a relationship with you, what it even means to feel your goodness. And you've abandoned me? Really, God? Really? Have you ever felt that before? Because I know, if we're being completely honest and completely raw, I felt that. I feel that quite often. I feel that so much. I feel that when my friends don't talk to me anymore, when something happens with them, or if a relationship ends, or when your mom and your dad are having a hard time, or when school just gets really hard. I mean, am I right? School's hard. But like these everyday things in life that just take away that happiness from us, or those absolutely horrible events that rip your normal away and tug at your heart. I felt this. Jesus felt this. And I know that if you're being completely honest with yourself, regardless of where you are in your walk, you have felt abandoned. Maybe it wasn't by God, because maybe you didn't feel like you could be abandoned by a God you never knew. Or maybe you feel that completely. Maybe you feel abandoned by your family. Maybe you feel abandoned by your friends. Maybe you feel abandoned by yourself, like you've just left yourself behind and you've taken care of all these other people. But you felt that pain. You felt abandonment. You felt rejection. You felt fear, anxiety. You felt this pain. And so did Jesus. Jesus felt that pain. Jesus knows. Jesus knew. Jesus experienced the weight of hell on his shoulders. Jesus experienced that. And as we saw before, there was nothing majestic or beautiful about him. Nothing seemed beautiful about him. He was human. I mean, he was awesome. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking away from him and his awesomeness. But he was human, which meant he felt that. He felt the weight of these burdens, and he carried this shame like we would, except times 100 billion, because it was the weight of hell. It was the weight of every sin, the weight of all shame, the weight of every bit of pain. Jesus felt that. He knows what it's like to feel what we feel. But that's not where it ends. It doesn't end with God abandoning you and nothing good coming out of it. In fact, when you hit that rock bottom, that's the new beginning. That's the time when God takes everything and he just makes so much more out of your life. Only if you allow him to, though. You see, when you hit rock bottom, you have a choice. You can either stay there. You can't really dig yourself in any deeper of a hole because you're probably exhausted. You might have broken your shovel, and also it's rock, so who even wants to try that game? So you can either stay there and you can look around in the darkness that you're in. You can dwell in your self-pity. You can feel bad for yourself. Or you can look up. And if you look hard enough, depending on how far down you've gone, depending on how far your rock bottom is, you'll see a light. And that light is that hope of the resurrection. And that's where I want to lead this into. So then, anyway, so it says that further down in 53, it says, but it was the Lord's good plan to crush him and cause him grief. Yet when his life is made an offering for sin, he will have many descendants. He will enjoy a long life, and the Lord's good plan will prosper in his hands. When he sees all that was accomplished by his anguish, he will be satisfied. And because of his experience, my righteous servant will make it possible for many to be counted righteous, for he will bear all of their sins. And I will give him the honors of a victorious soldier because he exposed himself to death. He was counted among the rebels, and he bore the sins of many and interceded for rebels. That's our God, y'all. That is our God. He felt abandoned. He felt forsaken. He felt absolutely alone because he felt all of the sin. That's our God. He exposed himself to death. He bore the sin, and he was made a rebel. I mean, he was put amongst the rebels, and he was compared to them. He was left alone, but it was the Lord's good plan. It was the Lord's good plan. And if we look in the book of Psalm, chapter 30, we see where David writes, "You have turned my mourning into joyful dancing. You have taken away my clothes of mourning and clothed me with joy, that I might sing praises to you and not be silent. O Lord my God, I will give you thanks forever." See, David experienced pain too. And this is kind of where the parallel of humanness in the Bible and then Jesus' humanness in the Bible hits. See, in Psalm 22, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but we see where David cries out to the Lord in chapter 22, verse 1. He says, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far away when I groan for help?" So we see that Jesus literally says the same thing that David says, but he also celebrates the same way that David celebrates, because in Isaiah 53, it talks about how, I read where it says, but it was the Lord's good plan to crush him so that he will exalt God's goodness and glorify God's goodness. And so we see where David felt that kind of pain and we feel that kind of pain, and that's where the actual flesh and human and the imperfect humanness feels that kind of pain, where we cry out, "Why have you forsaken me, God?" And then we see where Jesus felt that pain, the perfect human, but still human when it came to everything else. He felt that pain. My God, why have you forsaken me?" But we also see that that's not the end for anybody, and that God doesn't just leave you there, but he has more for you. And he turns our mourning into joyful dancing. He turns our mourning of just like our mourningness of just absolute mourning. Like, there's no other way to say that. That was really weird. But he takes that and he turns it into joy. And we see that he does the exact same thing through Jesus for us. And he makes a way. He creates a way. When there was absolutely no way in hell that we could literally be saved, God sent his one and only Son. And we can experience this when we hit that rock bottom, or when we get as close to that rock bottom as we need to get, and we look up and we see that light and we say, "God, I need you. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what your plans are, but I know that I need you, God." And if you've never said that prayer, I pray that you would. And I pray that you would see that there is a God who loves you, a God who understands your pain, and a God that has resurrecting power and is willing to work in you and change your heart. Maybe you are a believer though. Maybe you've already had that experience. and you just need that resurrecting power. And I just pray that over you. I pray that God would just take your heart and you would see that he can turn your mourning into joy. He can turn your sorrows into laughter, and he can make you new again. Your mourning will become joyful dancing, and he will take the clothing of that mourning and turn it into joy. And from there, it'll be so glorious, because Jesus had to experience that pain because we couldn't. Jesus did because we couldn't. God did that because we couldn't. And that's where we have to say, God, I need you. I can't do this anymore. I feel like you've forsaken me. You've abandoned me. You've left me alone. But God, I know that this plan will be good as long as I allow you to take it and make my life what you want, God. And that's the story. That's our life, God. Guys, sorry. That's our life. The crucifixion seemed like the end, but it was just the beginning of God's glory. And it was just the beginning of how God created a way and made a way, and there will always be a way. That might have been a lot. That might have been crazy. I might be a little crazy. I'm sorry, but I just love you guys, and I love God so much. And I just pray that this could be an encouragement to you to realize that our Messiah loves us so much, and that our God sent him because he loves us so much, and that we are not that Jesus was so different from us in the fact that he was absolutely perfect and amazing, but the pain that he felt, essentially the amount of it and the weight of it, we can never even understand. But the way that God will use that is how he can use our pain, is how he can use our life and our hearts. So I just pray that you guys would experience that you guys would cling to that, and you could share that with others. So that's kind of where my heart is. And I just pray for you guys, and I pray that God will continue to just work in your hearts in whatever way he has been. So happy Easter, and I just hope that you guys have a wonderful spring. I don't know. Love y'all. Bye.